Okay, so we'll transfer or transition now over to some more contemporary theories of crime, beginning with opportunity-based perspectives, which didn't really look so much at the characteristics of the perpetrator of an offense. They just looked at the qualities necessary for a crime to occur. And so what Cohen and Felsen talked about in routine activity theory was that crime would occur if there was a motivated offender, suitable target, and an absence of a capable guardian. And the idea here is that if you remove just one of those three factors, then a crime would not occur. In 1969, Travis Hershey developed his social bond theory to try and explain why people did not commit crime. So he developed or described 4 social bonds. The first one is attachment. It describes that an individual will have a closeness with others, and they won't want to engage in crime because if they do, it could jeopardize their relationship with these other people. Hershey also talked about commitment to conventional activities. So, for example, if somebody was playing on their high school hockey team and they were involved in an act of, for example, school bullying, or they got into a fight at the schoolyard, that might threaten their ability to play hockey. So they won't want to get into a fight because they will lose their investment. They will lose out on something not just that they enjoyed, but something that they've been working at, and it will seem sort of worthless to just lose that conventional activity. Involvement is all about time. It's the idea that if an individual is involved in enough pro-social activities, they'll have no time to actually go out and engage in antisocial ones. And lastly, belief is the description that an individual will respect and believe in conventional social norms, which usually are in relation to things like religion and not harming others, respecting your neighbors, your elders, and so on. So that was 1969, but then in 1990, Travis Hershey changed his perspective, and he, along with Michael Garvison, developed this idea about low self-control. They argued that one single construct explains all crime all the time. So remember, we talked about principles of theories. There cannot be a more parsimonious theory than this. Low self-control, according to Garvison and Hershey, explains homicide, but it also explains white-collar crime. It could explain drug trafficking. It could explain a B&E, an arson. It does not matter. Persons with low self-control were characterized by impulsivity, being insensitive to the feelings or needs of others, being risk-taking, short-sighted, preference for using nonverbal reactions like physical fighting as opposed to verbal expressions of their needs, and they would desire instant gratification. So there were 3 things that parents had to do, and if they failed to do any one of these 3 things, then between ages 8 to 10, low self-control would develop. So first, parents need to actually be supervising their children. They need to be around. They need to be around so that they can notice poor behavior. So they need to actually understand what is and what is not socially appropriate behavior. They can't just be in the room. They need to see when the behavior is wrong. And when they do recognize wrong behavior, they need to respond to that behavior with an appropriate parenting strategy. So like an authoritative rather than an authoritarian parenting strategy. According to Garvison and Hershey, low self-control remains stable over the life course, and people do not change. So students often get confused by this theory, not because they don't understand the theory, they just don't understand like how could this theory be so simplistic, and it's obviously wrong. And so you're right. When we look at empirical research, we can see, for example, that no, low self-control does not explain all crime. There are a bunch of other factors that matter as well, and even matter more. Low self-control also is very unstable. We see a lot of change over the life course, especially in early childhood and then again between late adolescence and early adulthood. But what Garvison and Hershey did that's really valuable is they challenged other theorists to take into account their assertions that low self-control caused all crime all the time. So they had to look at like, okay, does my theory actually improve upon the explanation of crime once I account for low self-control? Do people actually change over time? So the theory might have been wrong, but it produced a lot of research that was really good and really useful. Another more contemporary theory is Akers' social learning theory, where he combines Sutherland's idea of differential association and C. Ray Jeffries' idea of differential reinforcement. So this is just very simple. People will learn by doing. That's their reinforcement part. So people could be positively or negatively reinforced. Positive reinforcement is giving something to someone that they like. Negative reinforcement is taking away something that they would not like. So if people get reinforced in either way, they're more likely to repeat their behavior. Same thing, but if they see other people reinforced for that behavior. And reinforcements can come in different ways, by family, by peers, and media. People will be more likely to replicate behavior if it's by someone they respect. Developmental criminology is what I spend a lot of my time doing research on. One of the most famous developmental criminologists was Terry Moffat, and she made that distinction between adolescence limited and life course persistent offending, so students should be able to describe the differences between those two. Developmental criminology is kind of different from the general theory of crime that says people don't change. Developmental criminology is all about studying within individual change. Not to say that developmental criminology doesn't say that people are never stable in their personality traits, for example, only that we need to actually monitor and measure this. We can measure different risk factors and examine criminal behavior as a dynamic process of how people change in their patterns of offending over time. Life course criminology is associated primarily with the work of Robert Sampson and John Lobb, and there are four major pillars of life course criminology, one of them being historical context. So we can't just study crime in a vacuum. We have to consider, for example, was there a war during this era? Were there higher or abnormally higher rates of unemployment during this era? And that could all factor into why people were committing crimes in that particular era versus another. Another important thing to consider is the notion of linked lives and social capital. So who you know matters in helping you to get a job or helping you get a house, having your needs taken care of. One thing that life course and developmental criminology agree upon is the idea that risk factors are age graded. So why somebody engages in antisocial behavior at age 8 would be different from why someone does so at age 18 or 28 or 58. So we have to take into consideration a person's developmental stage when trying to explain crime. Another thing that life course criminology emphasizes that maybe developmental criminology doesn't emphasize as much is this idea of human agency. This idea that people don't necessarily need intervention or treatment. They can, through their own sheer will, change their sort of path in life. I don't really like talking about sort of initial theoretical perspectives on why girls and women are involved in crime because they were just particularly ideological and sexist. But over time, we've seen some more sociological and psychological perspectives of crime, some that have also been based on women's status at the particular era under examination. So the chivalry hypothesis suggests that women commit less crime because men are less likely to punish them. They're less likely to see their behavior as problematic, or because of their roles. By being more inside the house as homemaker, that would provide them with fewer opportunities to engage in crime. And again, this is a perspective that sort of dates back to around the 1950s, 1960s. We can look at sociological sources of crime where there's a big emphasis on marginalization and oppression. For example, patriarchal structures that limit the woman's sort of financial freedom or economic marginalization, and that can lead to the need to go out and perpetrate offenses, or maybe men and women are not treated equally in the workplace, or women do not receive equal pay, and therefore they are required to go out and engage in crime in order to sort of meet their needs because the job or the economic system or employment system can't provide for them. Psychological perspectives will focus primarily on how particular risk factors might matter more for girls and women compared to boys and men. So the personal, interpersonal, and community reinforcement theory, for example, has especially emphasized experiences of abuse.